Well, hi, my name's Jeff Cordwell and I provide ACCA APM courses online through jeffcordwell.com and also through fmelearnonline.com. And I thought today I'd do another one of these short sessions on what students sometimes think are silly questions when they're not silly questions at all, and they're really quite good questions. And the question I got this morning from one of my students was this. It just simply said, does a rolling budget create an incentive to simply fiddle targets? And he thought that was a silly question. And I think it's not a silly question. I think it's quite an astute question. I think it's a good question. Now rolling budgets achieve all sorts of things. You're rolling forward every quarter. So you're always, if you like, 12 months ahead in your budget planning. And I think that's a good thing. Traditional budgets, quite often, you're running out of budgeting period, aren't you, all the time? So if you budget for 2020, by the time you get to, September 2020, you've only got 3 months left of your budgeting period, and that's when it cycles on and you budget for 2021. But the other thing about rolling budgets is that you're allowed, when you're looking at a previous quarter, to adjust future elements of the budget for things that are outside of your control that might have changed permanently. And while that's very laudable, so there's a change to the market, COVID's come along, it's destroyed our business, our budget is unachievable, let's change that budget a little bit, let's roll forward with a new budget looking a bit more realistic. All sounds great. But unfortunately, in performance management, I think what you have to do sometimes is think rather cynically. Don't think positively at all, think cynically. And if you're allowed to change a budget for exogenous variables that have moved against you, it should be possible, shouldn't it, to change a future budget for something that perhaps hasn't entirely moved against you. You pretend it's moving against you. You pretend it's unfixable. So if you're a music business, let's say, you've had a poor first quarter, people haven't been turning up to the shows that you've been putting on. And then rather than thinking about, how can I change what I'm doing, maybe different bands, and doing a survey for the customers to see what kind of music they really want, what I could do is simply reduce the budget going forward. And bingo, I then get myself the favourable variances, if you like, that I crave. And that's the downside of rolling budgets. It doesn't create a commitment to the budget. It creates this attitude that if the budget's not quite right, I'll simply change it. And so I think it's not a silly question. It's a good question. Does a rolling budget create the incentive to fiddle targets? And I'm afraid the answer is, it could. So yes, and it's a good question.